Welcome back to a new episode. Ashley is a partner with Jesse Draper at Halogen VC. They've invested in companies like The Skim, some major brands that have taken off really in the space with women founders. And I've got so many questions. Yeah. Thanks so much.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I have so many questions, but my first question for you that I kind of like to start every single one of these episodes off with is starting as a kid, like looking back, what was your relationship with money?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. I love talking about my background, and I now feel more comfortable being able to express that given the role that I'm in, because I think that perspective, background, starting at, such a young age, all the way through college and into your adult years is so important. It shapes who you are.
Totally.
But my parents had me as teenagers, and so they were 15 and 16 years old. I'm the oldest of 4 children. I come from a really small country town in California, and my relationship with money was tough growing up. Yeah. And having teenage parents, really looking back on that and figuring out how to, take care of 4 children while like they were 2 working parents, and how to figure out childcare and how to pay for childcare. And then as we started to get older, we all wanted to play sports and become part of activities that are essentially expensive, that cost money. But I look back on it and I had such a wonderful childhood. I feel so grateful. My parents never really talked about like not having money to do things. They kind of always got really creative with how we wanted to do vacations and how we wanted to eat dinners. And I just remember family dinners always being like a feast. Like my mom would cook family dinners for like a football team basically, and we'd get to invite all of our friends and family over. It just felt like a community. And I always remember having a roof over my head, and that was the most important thing to me. As I got older and started to leave my hometown, I actually went to a private Catholic school in my hometown, and started to realize that wealth was looked a lot different than what I knew it as. And then as I left for college, I also started to see a different, abundance of wealth that in which people came from, and it inspired me. I didn't really feel like resentful in any way of like, why didn't I grow up with that? I actually feel so grateful for the way that my parents taught me about money. But my dad had always instilled in me that if you want something, you have to work hard for it. If you want a car, you have to work hard for it. And when I wanted a car, he said, you got to work for it. And I was playing 2 sports at the time in high school, and I worked 3 jobs as well, and put a down payment on my first car while I was in high school. I then recently gave it to my younger sister. But I had it all through high school, all through college, and well into my adult years. And that really instilled in me, it made me hold on to, the fact that if you work hard, you'll value something that much more, the fact that you worked so hard to earn that. And I think I'm able to implement that into my everyday life, both personally and professionally.
Do you feel like they kind of had you grow up in a middle-class household? Was it lower class, upper class?
Lower class.
Lower class.
Definitely, yeah.
2 teen parents.
2 teen parents, but they had a village. They had an amazing support group of family, and they all kind of like helped each other out, and not just like brothers and sisters and grandparents and parents, but also cousins and friends that they're still friends with now that I remember growing up with. It took a village and a community for them to be able to get to where they are today.
I have a girlfriend of mine who works in tech, and she has been so desperately trying to break into the VC world, like get a job in VC. To me, I would think anyone who wants to work in VC or be a partner at a fund, you have to be so good with money. So on a scale of like 1 to 10 with your own investments, what your parents taught you, I mean, where would you place yourself on that scale?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I would say it was something I learned over time. It wasn't something I just like inherently was born with or something that my parents like instilled, they sat me down and talked about like private investing and, public investing, or, saving money and making sure to invest in a Roth IRA and retirement funds and, all these things. It was something that I learned actually in college. And then after college, I just became obsessed with it. I signed up I read a book, actually. It was written by Alexa Von Tobel.
Oh, yeah.
And it started to talk about your relationship with money starting as a kid, as we're talking about now, and how that's evolved over time, how you implement that into your everyday life, and how you can shift that if it wasn't a good relationship with money, right? And I became obsessed with it. And I'm not a financial like expert or wealth advisor. I'm not here to like give advice on that, but I would say my relationship is closer to that, like 10 scale with money, on how I dream and want to manage my money and grow that money for generational wealth for my kids, for my parents, and for my siblings as well. I want to just have this like abundance of wealth to be able to share that with them. Yeah.
Do you think as a woman as well, being able to be financially, stable on your own and your career, how important has that been to you throughout the trajectory of where you are now?
So important. I pride myself on independency.
Yeah.
I put myself through college, which I went to UCLA here in Los Angeles, and I paid for rent, paid for my car, paid for my own food, anything like on the extracurricular stuff, fun things that I wanted to do, trips that I wanted to take. And my parents are so gracious in the sense that they're like, you did that. You are here because of you. But really, they've instilled really great values in me. But it's a big, piece of me, as far as I never want to have to be reliant on anyone else to go and buy something that I want, whether that's a stock or invest in a company, or it's a pair of shoes or a vacation or a car. I want to know that I worked hard and I earned it. That goes for real estate, like a house or, anything down the line. Like it's important to like have your own money to own. I think when I'm married, so like when you get married, it depends on who you are, but they, some people combine finances, and someone once told me, it's okay to combine finances because you're going to have, mutual expenses, right? So it's things that you share, like sometimes in the home and grocery shopping, and you go on trips together. But it's also important to have your own set of money. And whatever's mine is my husband's as well. But I feel so lucky to have a partner that is so proud to have me as his wife. And it is like, you are such excuse my language, such a badass and such a rock star. And every single day he is so encouraging in that way. And I feel so lucky because I don't know what it looks like for everyone else, but I couldn't imagine a better partner to have that encourages me to continue to work really hard and encourages me to have that independence and allows me to thrive in my career and as a person.
Where'd you guys meet?
Random. We met in person.
Okay. It still happens, people.
We met in person at LA Live.
Funny. Okay.
It used to be, it was a really nice like Mediterranean restaurant at LA Live. And I was downtown for a board meeting. And he was going to the Laker game. And I was at this restaurant. I kind of bellied up to like the bar area. And I was by myself. There was like all but a 75-year-old couple having dinner. It was quiet and peaceful. I'm like, this is exactly what I need after a long day. And he came in, sat next to me, and I've seen him every
What
day
year was
since.
this?
This was in 2018.
Okay, so it wasn't even like, I was going to say, if you're going to tell me 2004,
No.
like now the days are with the
No.
apps and everything, it's
No,
totally
this is
different.
when apps were happening.
Okay.
Yeah, this is when apps were happening. And I met him in person. I've literally have seen him every day since. He's the greatest human ever.
Okay, so I abide by this. Then you can still meet in person if it was 2018. But going back to what you said about money and really doing it all on your own, I kind of come from a very similar background, super small town, no money, no connections. And when I pursued this entrepreneurship, moving out, doing the whole starving artist thing, I started to resent a lot of friends that I would meet along the way, and especially moving to LA and doing that for a while here. And everyone I would meet, I mean, I have friends, no offense to them, and they know this. And I think there's also a confidence that comes in them being able to say, like, I still get a lot of financial help from my parents. I'm 30, I'm 32, because I never had that. And so when I meet someone like you who says, like, you really did it on your own, your parents weren't like, if it's not doing well, like, we'll still help you. They really pushed you to do that. Because a lot of young people, especially people I think who have followed me throughout the years, are that generation of not coming from it and not having had the access to that kind of financial help. But do you think it made you want it more? Did it make you more frustrated, your success?
First of all, I admire that you shared that. So thank you, because I think it's important for people to share that. It doesn't, although you people see success on, social media or based on your bio or, whatever it is, no one quite knows the journey that it took to get there, right? And so I love being able to share my story, and I love when people like you share it as well. I think that it is important. I understand the resentment part of it, because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you felt this, but there were a lot of people in my life that would be able to just fearlessly pursue things. And I envied that. It wasn't a resentment towards them. It was a resentment towards, or an envious type of feeling towards that type of characteristic. And I'm like, what is that like, to be able to just blindly and fearlessly jump into something with, all confidence? And I always kind of felt this chip on my shoulder where I can't make the wrong move, because if I do, I won't have anything. I don't have anything to fall back on. I would literally be maybe homeless. I wouldn't have any money to pay for food. I wouldn't be able to do all the fun things that I wanted to do. And I felt like that was inhibiting me pursuing my dreams. But it's a scary thing to take that step forward, not knowing where that next dollar is going to come.
It's traumatic,
or when.
looking back.
It really is. Since, a little bit before I met my husband, and still, talking to my husband about it, I remember having this conversation with him. And I was like, have you ever felt that? And he's like, no, not really. No. I've talked to a few people too, and they're like, I don't know what that's like.
So they grew up with money.
Yeah. A lot of them have, not my husband by any means, but he's like, I asked him if he knew people like that, if he's encountered that. And then other women in my circle too. And they're like, no, I've not, they didn't grow up with this abundance of wealth of being able to swipe credit cards, not anything like that. It just, they felt safe to be able to make a wrong decision and be able to jump. And I'm like, I want that. I want to be able to feel that. And I quickly realized that it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have the backfall of money sitting there just in case. Because I think that some of the best people come out of stories like yours, of not having that backfall. And having that chip on their shoulder, and really hustling and working hard for that next paycheck, and dreaming really big. It's this crazy amount of optimism, but also you're a realist in the best way possible. And people can relate to that too. I
appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's a different type of ambition.
Yeah.
I also am curious for you. I mean, I know you're 6 months, you're 6 months into a pregnancy, which is so exciting. And I always think to myself, with my kids, hopefully that come one day, because I didn't grow up having any money for college, for any of that. I always think the goal is that obviously I would be able to give them those things, but then it's kind of to what extent, right? Yeah. You weren't given the opportunity to have your college paid for, to have a car right out of high school. Yeah. So knowing now that you're successful, how do you view your generation, that you're bringing this next generation into the world, knowing that your current status quo is so different than how you grew up?
Yeah. to me, generational wealth, even before I knew I was going to have kids, was always such a big thing. I was actually looking at companies that helped with debt, that helped plan for future, with financial services, with educational things, and how to build that generational wealth. It wasn't something that no one ever talked about. I didn't even hear that term, honestly, until maybe like right when I graduated college. And that just seems so crazy to me. And now, we have a fellowship class. Halogen has a fellowship class that just launched. And these kids are the world's in great hands. They're so wonderful and smart. And I'm like, if I knew the things that they knew when they were in, or when I was in college, like, I don't know where I would be. But it is a big piece of what I think about. I have a little bit more anxiety around making sure that I'm as successful as I can and really building those building blocks for my kids to come. I want to give the world to my family too. And that's not just my children, it's my parents and my siblings who are so wonderful and deserve the world. But for my kids in particular, I am like, how could I continue to set them up financially, but also make sure that they know how to work hard? What is that balance? I think about this all the time. I don't know the answer, but I do think about like making sure that, they know how to work hard. They know how to network and ask the right questions and how to carry themselves in a room and just be a kind human. That's like the best thing I think you can teach your kid. But also just making sure that they're set up to succeed in the best way possible.
Okay, so you go to UCLA, you pay for it. What do you study?
So I studied sociology, actually. I took some comms and like marketing classes as well, courses. I thought I wanted to go into entertainment and media and like PR and marketing, and I did, actually. And a lot of the internships that I was taking were in those types of categories. And then I took an internship when you're in college, it depends on where you go, but I didn't know that like people line up internships just, quarters ahead, semesters ahead. And I had come to a time, maybe it was like the spring or something, and I was looking, everyone's like, you don't have an internship set up for the winter or, the next summer. And I'm like, no, I don't know. I'm like working full time, doing internships, not getting paid. And like still trying to get my work done at school, and volunteer and do all these things. And I was in a sorority, and they had this like email list going out, and I got an email from Jessie Draper, and she was looking for an intern for her technology talk show called The Valley Girl Show. And I remember just clicking on the website, and I watched a few episodes, and I thought, this woman, she is so silly and fun and lighthearted. I don't know anything about what she's talking about in any of these shows, but I want to work for her. She sounds so awesome. That was the only really research that I did was on the show that she was hosting. And like I recognized a few of the people that she was interviewing. But where I grew up, technology, startups, and venture capital didn't exist. So the first time I had actually ever heard about investing in venture capital and technology startups and entrepreneurship in this light was this show. I applied for an internship and I got it.
And this is Halogen had launched then or no?
No, this is pre-Halogen.
Okay.
And so I was a junior in college. In undergrad.
And what was she doing at the time? Just investing?
She was running that technology talk show.
Okay.
Yeah. And so she was angel investing as well, but mostly running. She was a former entrepreneur, so running this incredible technology. It was one of the first technology talk shows. I had never seen anything like it. It was kind of like, the Ellen Show, like a very lighthearted way of interviewing tech entrepreneurs. And so I came on as an intern, and she was so awesome. I just remember meeting her, and she was like this breath of fresh air being in LA. I was doing internships at entertainment and media companies. All my peers were doing the same at like Disney, iHeart, NBC Universal, all the talent agencies. It was like, you know, LA is like the media entertainment hub. And tech and VC didn't exactly exist the way that it does now back then. And I stuck around. She calls me the intern that never fell off because I think she hired like 10 of us.
Oh, unpaid or paid?
I don't remember. I think I was paid.
Okay.
And I think that's why I took it actually, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting this amazing, you know, experience and exposure. Totally. And I get to meet all these awesome people. It's kind of an entertainment too, which I knew really well just being in LA, and I'm learning a new thing.
But you're not thinking at this point, I'm going to be a VC?
No. Oh my gosh. No, I didn't even, I mean, that wasn't even in sight until years after.
Okay.
After I interned for that show, she stopped the show for a little while, and we kind of stayed in touch over time. I would say she taught me at that young age how to stay in touch with people and just kind of circle back, always check in. And it's not necessarily always asking for things. It's like, hey, how are you doing?
Huge.
How could I like help you? And is there anything that, you know, you could guide me on, or if you're seeking mentorship? But also I was kind of asking for like, are there any opportunities in which you know about? Here's like my resume. And we would stay in touch, and I would do a few projects for her over the years. I went on to work for iHeartMedia. So, and I did that for a couple of years, worked on their talent relations team. So handled that at their live shows across the country, did some light producing with a few shows that they had. And then, it was kind of at the beginning of when they started their West Coast podcast here at the Burbank office. It was so fun. Yeah. I loved it. And then in 2016, 2017, Jessie Draper called me and said, you know, I'm starting my show, or my venture capital fund, with the same mission of how I started my show. I want to give women more media exposure and get them out there, but I want to give them capital to get their businesses off the ground as well. Will you quit your job and do it with me?
Wow.
So I did.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I had ever made. I came on as a chief of staff. And even then, when I first got into venture, I still didn't see myself, didn't picture myself as a venture capitalist. Why? Right? I didn't really know what it meant to work in venture capital at the time and build a career. No one ever told me about talked to me about what it's like to build a career as a venture capitalist. I kind of thought I was in this like supporting chief of staff role, but it was so much more than that. And I actually talk about, I give a lot of like mentorship calls and meetings with people that are looking to get into venture and what that chief of staff role looks like. I feel like in venture, it was kind of like at the beginning of when the chief of staff role started to happen in venture. You know, it's been a part of companies forever. But it was this like hybrid role. So it was like chief of staff operating, supporting Jessie, but also an investment role. And so many people reached out to me and they were like, what does your chief of staff role look like? How do you have this like hybrid role? Because traditionally people are afraid to go into venture and work solely on the operating side, depending on the fund that you join. But traditionally they're like, people will say, kind of scare those that want to break into venture and say, don't go on the operating side because then it's hard to jump ship to the investment side. I just didn't have that experience. Like Jessie was like, we're going to throw you into the deep end and you're going to learn it all. And that's exactly what happened. I learned by doing. I learned by shadowing her. She allowed for me to sit in meetings with her, both fundraising, pitch meetings, business provider meetings, just networking, playing up, networking meetings. Went to conferences and summits with her. And I was probably one of the youngest ones in the room at the time, and the most diverse too. Now it looks a lot different. So I am so grateful for where venture is today. But it looked a lot different, and I didn't quite see my career in venture as a venture capitalist until a few years in. But every year, someone recently asked me about this. Every year at the end of the year, Jessie would sit me down and she would say, what are your goals? And I no one had ever asked me that. Truly, like no one had ever asked me that throughout my whole adult career, or even in college. And I had always been in positions in which I was pleasing people, right? And so I was always, people would give me a list of things to do, and I would do them, and I would excel. I'm like, you tell me what to do, and I will do it 100 times over, and as good as you want me to, right? And I remember that feeling, and I thought, I need to start thinking about these things, not just when people ask me, but I need to like have a conversation with myself, write my goals down, and figure out what my path looks like. And every year she'd keep asking, and I finally had asked her, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean, like personally, or do you mean professionally? She said, what is your goal in this role that you're in right now? Like, do you want to, become a principal one day? Do you want to become a partner one day? Do you want to become an operating partner one day? Do you want to start your own fund? I remember this conversation so clearly, and I had said I had never thought about it.
Yeah.
I truly didn't even envision myself to be able to have a position like that. Can I get back to you? And I went home and really thought about it, and that's when I started to dream it up. I got promoted to vice president over the years. I've been with Halogen from the beginning to now. It's been almost a little over 7.5 years. Got promoted to vice president, and then got promoted to partner. So I've worked my way up.
So the power of the follow-up. I have always been such a person who's so adamant about young people following up. A lot of people get rejected, and I'm assuming there's been opportunities, and especially in media and entertainment, where you face that rejection, but it seems like you just did not give up.
Yeah.
When Jessie called you, did you ever have a moment where you thought that she had just seen something in you? Like, why you, right? Like, why after all these years does she call you up? I mean, looking back, what do you think that she saw in you? If you could pick one trait you had that made her like, I want to hire Ashley.
Yeah. We have this running joke that we're both the oldest of 4 in our family. So we're like the older sister of our family. And then we have another team member on our team that's also the oldest of 4. Mm-hmm. And it's like, do we have this like weird, like oldest sister thing that we have going on? It's a total joke, but it's a coincidence.
Makes sense, to be honest,
I don't know. I think it kind of goes back to what my parents taught me, specifically my dad, of if you're going to do something, do it 110%. And I'm not sure if like everyone has that. And I'm lucky to like be surrounded by all these incredible men and women that give up 150% always. Like, I feel like that energy is so contagious. Mm-hmm. And I've been really good at surrounding myself with people like that. And when we dive into something, we're giving it our all. And Jessie is the same exact way. Like, when she dives into something and she's so passionate about it, she is giving it her all. And I really admire that about her. But she really took a chance on me. I think that's like the I don't know what she would say about that, but I really do feel lucky. Like, she took a chance on me and was like, show me what you got. And I just gave it 110%.
So for anyone who doesn't know, so this fund, right? Yeah. So, and I probably know less about this than I even should, but if you're at an VC or you work at this fund, it's not like she was calling you, and correct me if I'm wrong, being like, Ashley, we also want you to take your own money and invest in these. It's a bunch of partners, correct? So then you all invest your own money or other people's money. Mm-hmm. How does that world behind the scenes go?
So venture capital fund, they're all different. The way that venture capital typically works is we raise from limited partners. So we have LPs that we raise money from. They invest into our venture capital fund, and then we invest that money into companies, right? So we're essentially managing other people's money in this pool that is Halogen Ventures. And depending on like which fund it is too, because you raise a certain amount for a fund, and then once you deploy all of that capital, then you go out and raise another amount for a fund. Once you deploy all that capital, it's like this always, reoccurring cycle. until your companies like make it big and they want to like invest in you and like invest back in the ecosystem. That's I think the best part of it. But that's typically how it works. And so when we go out and raise a fund, we have LPs that invest in our fund, and then we go and invest that money into early stage companies.
But it's hard now, this world. A lot of people who I know behind the scenes who are trying to raise money, it's just a hard system right now. Why do you think that is? I mean, how many companies are you investing in, or you see not get investment just because it's too risky, even if it's a great idea?
Yeah. I think the bright side is, or the positive of this is, a lot more people are starting companies. There are so many people out there that are exploring entrepreneurship, that are taking that step. I think that's the optimistic side of me. That's so cool that you're taking that step. I think for people raising money, sometimes they don't quite understand. It's sexy to raise venture capital money, but they don't quite understand that you can build a successful business without having to raise venture right off the bat, right? You can wait till you get to a certain point and, hold on to every piece of your company that you possibly can until you're reaching maybe like a growth part where you're like, I need, an influx of capital to be able to take my company to the next level, right? But I think that there was this miscommunication of, not every company that started needs to raise venture capital money. And then, sometimes it just doesn't fit like theses. And venture funds sometimes change too. They're like, we've invested in this vertical and now we want to focus on this vertical. For us, we're so excited about the future of families space. So we've been investing in consumer technology companies and some strategic B2B companies. And this future of family space, we have quite a few in our portfolio already. We've just realized, well, first of all, they're doing so well, and these founders are incredible. They're, changing the world in so many ways and making, bless you,
Thanks.
and making money while doing it. And these are problems that families and women and men and children are experiencing every single day.
Yeah.
And so I think over time, you kind of narrow in on a focus. And sometimes it's, there's a lot of companies being started in a space. And if a fund or an investor specifically already invested in a company like that, they might have some bruises from investing in that type of vertical, right? So they're kind of like, I'm going to take a beat and I'm going to pause on investing in this specific type of company. Or they've already invested in that company that's exited for them and did really well. And they're like, that was the first in the space. They were the innovators. And now we're looking to focus on these different categories since we've already had a success in that specific vertical.
So what is the pro tip, one tip? So if you've got a company, you're bringing in a few thousand a month, give or take, or you need money to make it go further, you're like losing too much money. How do you know when you need to go to a Halogen or a fund and try and raise?
Yeah. Well, I would think about too, what are all the steps that you can take before you go out and reach a venture capitalist, right? To raise money specifically. And so is it angel money? Is it friends and family? Some people say friends and family, and that doesn't just actually mean your friends and your family, because not everyone, I didn't have that network of people that could just cut a check. And, people would say that to me and I'm like, who, you have that? Like, how many people in your circle do you have that could just cut a check like that? And so I don't like to just say friends and family means you're close people that you grew up with. It means other angel investors or just people in your network that you can reach out to and talk to and then make introductions for you. And maybe they could be part of this close friends and family round, right? Before you go out and raise money from a venture capital fund. And then once you kind of engage what talking to those investors looks like, and you build out some traction, say you have some reoccurring revenue, you have some great customers and clients, some partnerships, you've built a brand to the point where you're like, I've put everything I could into this. I've explored every other option. I do need this a check, a larger influx of money from a venture capital fund to really take me to the next level. That doesn't always just mean money. It means finding a venture fund or investors that are strategic as well, that'll help you outside of just taking, writing you
Yeah.
a check. Help you with partnerships, help you with other introductions, help you with go-to-market strategies, exposure and PR, and whatever that looks like to you, where you need help with finances as well. Once you kind of feel like you reach that point where you reach out to venture capitalists, you can do it early. I think it's always good to it's good to raise when you don't need to raise as well.
Sure.
So cultivating those relationships and starting those conversations is always great. I have tons of founders that reach out to me and they're like, I'm not raising, but it's funny. They'll like go through their whole pitch of a company, and at the end I'm like, okay, like what are you raising? Tell me about your round. They're like, oh, I'm not raising. Like, we're good. But I'll definitely keep you posted when we are. And I love those founders.
Too fun, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, you took me through your whole pitch and now I'm excited. But that really gets those investors excited. But the best time to raise is when you're not raising. So start cultivating those relationships. Start talking to VCs. Start networking and showing up to events and cold outreaching or asking people for warm intros. You can also make founder friends. Like, making founder friends is it's a lonely road building a company, as you know, and having those founder friends to bounce ideas off of, but also gauge who to get introductions from. Some of the best companies that are sent to us are sent by our founders.
Yeah.
They have a great network, they know what we're looking for, and they have a great cap table of investors that are betting on them as well.
So inspiring. And the power of also that cold email. Okay. The power of that cold email as well, someone cold emailing you. How often do you respond to those emails?
Oh my gosh. I try my very, very best to respond to as many as I could. I feel like I was better about it before, and we're a small but mighty team. And so over the years, I'm like, we'll spend time. Now I have to like block time on my calendar, but I get like thousands of outreach on LinkedIn and cold email. And then I also look through our general email through Halogen as well. I meet people at conferences and at networking events. I met someone at the doctor's office the other day, like so random.
Yeah.
And I think the power of networking is so important to me. I never ever wanted to be that person that was like, oh, I hold my connections like near and dear, and I do, but like if I want to make sure I could find who would be useful to people, right? And so how I wanted it to be like that connector. And Jessie, our founding partner, actually taught me this, is I would go and watch her speak at events, and she would give out her email on panels, and I would watch the rest of the panel, the panelists on stage, and not a single one of them would give out their email. She was the
Mark
only
Cuban does that too,
one.
I'm pretty sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I loved that about her. And I mean, I was her chief of staff at the time, and I'm like, oh my God, this schedule is about to be like so crazy. Like, we're only a 2-person team. How are we going to like get through this? And it is important to prioritize and, be very thoughtful about your networking. And you're only one person. You only have so much time. And I've been lucky enough that people have been so gracious, and they're like, I totally understand. I emailed you here. And I'm like, I am not ignoring you. I swear. I haven't been able to like sit down and look through my LinkedIn or my inbox of cold emails quite yet. But ping it back up to the inbox, and like 99% of people are so gracious about it. And we're like, hey, I know like you're busy, just wanted to ping this, and we'll ping. And then, I try to sit down with or have like a call or a meeting of some sort with everyone that I possibly can. But I do the same. I give out my email.
I love it.
On stage. I give out my email, like I'll hand out my cards. I will have people add me on the spot, and
keeping your connections close to your heart. I always think some people are very weird with that, and I get it, but I also think it depends on the way that this person is going about asking you for that introduction. Like I have people who I've went on one date with or one like conversation with, and they're like, oh, I want to get a job at Disney. Do you know anyone there from when you work? And I'm like, dude, I haven't talked to you in like 8 years. I don't even find that ballsy. I just find it stupid. Like it's just like odd to me. Like I don't even know. What if you go and make me look bad? I think that's the thing with those, is you don't want to introduce someone and then you look bad.
Exactly.
So you have to really do it in the right way.
You have to be thoughtful about it. Yes. And it's important, if you're asking for something, do your homework too. And so usually I would like to meet them. I am like, okay, we have, they've met someone else, or I've done like my research and like back channeled on them a little bit as well. We've like interacted a couple of times. Like that's important to me because this is a human interaction.
Totally.
We're both human on both sides of the table, right? And so, I tried to be very, very thoughtful about that. But I think it's important to be able to like open your world up to connecting people, because you never know how it's going to come back around, right? But you also, have to be like a good people reader.
Of course.
This person's going to shine a good light.
Because those connections take a while as well to make.
They
so
do.
Again, you never really want to present yourself in a poor light. So I think just be cautious. But Ashley, you are amazing. Halogen is amazing. Where can everyone find out more about the company, about you, connect with you, your email if you want to give it out?
Feel free to email me. It's ashley@halogenvc.com. Our website is halogenvc.com. You'll find out pretty much everything you need to know on there as well. We post a lot on LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn. You can follow Halogen Ventures on LinkedIn. And we have a great newsletter. So sign up for our newsletter on our website. It's all the happenings of Halogen, some events that we've done or are doing, and all of our portfolio companies.
So cool.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. Oh gosh, you're amazing.
It's so
I have so many more questions for you, but I literally could go on for like hours into mentorship and networking.
Oh, don't worry.
But I literally am so impressed by your story.
Oh, thank you. Well, hopefully it was
perfect.
I try to be honest. I think it's important to be honest because I don't know, a lot of the people in I feel like now a lot of people are a lot more transparent, but it was tough for me, I think, to visualize a career in venture because I didn't see anyone like talking about it. Like even people that I was talking to, I'm like, that I knew in the industry, I'm like, how'd you get here? They're like, oh, my, so-and-so got me an internship and like here. And then I was, did a job here. And then I knew this person.
Totally.
And I'm like, I knew no one.
Yeah, I know. You have to like make those connections on your own.
A single person. Yeah. And one thing that people don't realize is as you are, if you're breaking into venture, as you grow within your career in venture capital, you are making those connections, and those people that are at the same level as you are starting out too. You're on this journey together, and then they grow into partner positions. They grow and raise their own funds.
Totally.
They go and work at private equity and growth funds that are cutting, billion-dollar checks, or hundreds of million-dollar checks into companies that could invest in your companies.
Sure.
And that's how I quickly realized, oh my gosh, that's how this Essential Boys Club was made like they're all having a seat at the table and they're all doing deals behind closed doors. They've cultivated these relationships wherever we're at an early stage. I'm like, we could have a girls club of like all of us who are doing so like just incredible things that have such a different perspective. And all of my closest friends, not a single one is in venture capital.
Really?
We're all in very different things.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to get together and learn about. I have this saying that I live by that's like, every new person you meet knows something you don't. Yeah. And I appreciate that so much and that's why I love networking and meeting new people like yourself. But being in the industry that I'm in, whether it's an LP, whether it's an entrepreneur, a co-investor, or whoever, someone looking to break into VC, I'm like, you have this a crazy amount of knowledge and a different perspective that I can learn from, and I get so excited to learn about people.
I didn't even get to ask you about all raise.
Oh.